Hey everybody, Jonathan here. You might know me as Mr. J57 if you play Xbox and currently in the world of Elder Scrolls Online. I've been a chef and a cook for over 20 years and have just enjoyed feeding people and the excitement and the food and all the elements that go into it. But I've been gaming even longer, and one of the things that always confused and kind of made me laugh was that all the people that I met in those games would tell me what they were eating, and it was always just binge Cheetos, chips, Doritos, Mountain Dew. They were never eating real meals. So if you're wanting to learn how to cook and you feel like it's going to take away from your gaming, this is the show for you. Getting some of the garlic ready here. You just take it to its side to get that skin off of it. Crack it through. That outside paper skin will come off real nice and easy. Set that off to the side. And then what I like to do is just push it down even more. Get it nice and squished. Just run your knife through it a few times. One of the cool things about shepherd's pie is it's very rustic. You're going to see a lot of different styles of cuts, a lot of different shapes going into it, but mostly because all Irish, Scottish, English food is very rustic. It's very open to interpretation, and most of the time, it's very inexpensive. Peel me off some potatoes here. Kind of want to get the potatoes and some of your prep work done first. Just makes the overall experience a little bit quicker, you know, so that you don't have something on the stove cooking behind you. And for your mashed potatoes, you just kind of want to get them all into nice even chunks. Doesn't matter what shape you cut them in, just make sure they're even, that way they cook evenly. I'm gonna take my pot here. As you can see, there's no water in the pot yet. It's a good rule for your potatoes. The more water that you put in the pot, the longer it's going to take for that water to get hot, and you do want to start with cold water when it comes to potatoes. That way they cook evenly. Once they're nice and covered, you set them on the stove on high and let them go. All right, next I'm going to get some onions cut up. Lots of different ways that people will show you how to do this, especially on the internet these days. I always try to leave myself a little bit of the butt on the back. That way it holds the onion together. Remove all that outer layer of skin after you cut it in half. That's what'll give it up. There we go. Take all that off, and also take off the first layer. A lot of people don't do that, they'll leave that layer. Once you start cooking this right here, even though it looks like just a thin onion, that becomes extremely hard to chew. So take off your first layer of your onion. That way all the layers are nice and still full of water. What's happened is that started to dry out. All right, and then I take the side that doesn't have the butt on it. This is just a simpler way to make sure you get your lines and even cut. Cut almost all the way through, but leave it to where you can still hold up the whole thing just by one hand. Turn it around, go through the onion. I'm doing this one about a small dice, but a little bit bigger, just so that we can see the onion in the shepherd's pie at the end. All right. And then basically you just want to cut it down, all that into this bowl. This is where I'm going to put my veggies. Okay. Do a couple carrots next. Just taking the outer skin off. Just so you know, as far as carrots go, a lot of people will go way too deep on a carrot. You're just trying to get that outer skin because the carrot grows in the ground. And they do wash these, but for me, that outer skin kind of gets a little bit tough because it's been exposed to all that. So you want to get it cleaned off. That ensures there is no dirt, there is no problems, there's no anything on it, and you end up with just a nice clean carrot. For what we're going to do today, I'm just going to cut a little bit on what's called the bias. Kind of thin because I want it to cook as close to the same time as those medium onions, but I like to see the carrot in the shepherd's pie. I don't want to, you know, dice it up real small and then not be able to see it at the end. Okay? All right, so now we have our carrots. That again can go right in here. Since we're going to be kind of cooking these at the exact same time, that can go right in here to our bowl with our onions. Then we're going to have another bit of veg to go in there. You know, for those of you that are interested in the nerd aspect of cooking, these three items are what's called mirepoix in cooking. It's a French culinary term. Mirepoix is just aromatic vegetables. So for this, I want to make sure that it's going to be close to that same size at least, maybe not the same cut, but the same size as our other two vegetables. The ratio for this, I normally do an onion, 2 carrots, 2 stalks of celery, but the traditional one is going to be 1-1-2, so 2 parts onions, 1 part celery, 1 part carrot. That's just like the very, I don't know whether to call it the school or the traditional way of doing mirepoix. They've just found that to be the most aromatic version of it. For something like this that's really rustic, really, you know, of the earth kind of food, and definitely in the English, Scottish, and Irish food, it's definitely something that could be considered that way. I just like to mix that up a little bit, give a little bit more of the carrot and the celery, less of the onion, just to ensure that you're getting all those flavors and you can see it all. You can see it. Another item that I have over here is some green peas. That's going to go in there as well. And then this here, this is a leek. Very beautiful vegetable, lots of flavor in it. It's a lot of people will kind of lean it towards a green onion, but realistically, it is its own flavor. You can see there's a lot of layers to it. You can use the greens up top, but that's where most of the dirt gathers. Most people just use the whites. What you want to do is to make sure that you're getting a good cut. I'm turn that down just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and get our oven started and start heating up our pan for our shepherd's pie in general. I'm going to go down the middle, and you can just see that just fans out, right? There's just going to be all that's going to get really nice and crispy when we put it in the oil and butter in the pan. Make sure that you go all the way through with your cut. And then you want to kind of give it that same style cut you've been giving everything else. This one will look a little bit bigger in certain spots, but it's going to give for a nice mouthfeel whenever you're eating the final product. So that's going to be our leeks. That's our vegetables cut. We've got our peas. We've got our meat. Here in just a minute, we're going to start cooking all this up. Well, now I'm just going to add those leeks into our hot skillet. And now that all that, you know, sort of boring, but I do want to make sure that everybody understands how to do it. You know, prep work is done. Now it's time for the fun part of cooking, right? You want to get the leeks in there first, let them cook, let them get crispy. I always like to throw my garlic in with my leeks. That way the garlic can go ahead and start roasting off as well. We're going to kind of cook this in segments. Take things out, add things back in until we can get it all together in there to make one beautiful dish. You can see our mashed potatoes have already started cooking. I turned them down just a little bit so that they can finish cooking without being, you know, over boiling. This is going to take a little bit of time to saute down, but like I said, with that cast iron, it's not going to take quite as long as it would for anything else. Just have to let it get nice and hot, and then once it's rolling, we're going to be able to get through this nice and quick. Grab a bowl and take as much as I can of this out of here. Wooden spatula have done great, but I'm going to use your brother here, the spoon. You can see that they've already started to wilt down. This just adds so much incredible flavor. A lot of the traditional recipes that you'll see will not include leeks. I think this is kind of what the Elder Scrolls Online cookbook is trying to add to it to make it a little crazy, a little fun. Again, if you want to look it up. It's called Goatherd's pie in there. There's just a lot of really cool recipes in there. My wife bought it for me. It's what it kind of started the idea of me doing this cooking show, is that there's a book literally dedicated to what I'm already doing. The next thing I'm going to add is I'm going to go ahead and put the ground beef down in there. Because there's a lot of water and vegetables, if we can go ahead and get all the oil and grease out of the ground beef. All right, we're going to let that ground beef just go until it's nice and completely done. And then I'm going to move it over to a plate as well. Then we're going to drop our vegetables in there, let those cook and those go, and then the process begins of putting everything together. All right, so the mashed potatoes are almost done. The meat is getting nice and brown, and you can see all that fat coming out of there. That you need to drain off once it's cooked, okay? All right. Now that we got our beef ground off, and you see that my potatoes are removed from the water, all I did was drain that through a colander. This beef, you want to pull it out, but leave that fat in the bottom. That fat is what's going to cook off your vegetables, and there's nothing like, that flavor mixed together. You can add just a little bit more olive oil, and for this, since it is the vegetables, I like to add a little butter myself. This is Irish butter. We're gonna grab our vegetables that we cut up before, and they get dropped down in there. And other than the potatoes, you can see this is kind of, it's not too bad because it's all in one pot, right? We've got our potatoes that are ready to be mashed here. Put them back in there and turn the heat down to low, okay? We're gonna add a bunch of butter. Add some of that heavy cream. I always make sure I go ahead and mash that up first before I start seasoning. Again, heavy cream is going to add a content of seasoning. Your butter is going to add a content of seasoning. So you don't want to just throw everything in there and then just be like, oh no, it's too salty, it's too peppery. This will make sure that you can add what you need. You can always add. You can never take away once it's in there. And then you'll see that you already start seeing that mashed potato consistency. Still keeping the temperature on nice and low because now you've added all that fat, that butter, cream. You don't want to scorch it, okay? As far as seasonings go, I'm pretty simple with mine. I'm gonna go with some pepper. Just how much you like. Don't worry about measurement. Not when it comes to seasoning. Put it in there, mix it up, taste it, okay? Now there is something different that I'm going to do from the recipe itself that's in the book. It's adding cheese, okay? I think it adds a lot of flavor, and it also helps whenever you're putting it on to the final product. It browns the top off. Shepherd's pie, once we're all done, this is going to be the topping for this, and then it goes into the oven for a little bit, gets this nice brown top. So what I did was I went out, I bought some Irish cheddar, and I'm shredded into potatoes once I have the seasoning where I want it, okay? Get that mixed up, make sure that we've got it seasoned properly. I'm actually gonna throw a little salt into our veg too. That's gonna help draw out some of the moisture a little bit quicker, especially with those carrots being cut the way they are. We don't wanna have to concern ourselves with something getting cooked quicker than the other thing. You can see our vegetables are getting brown, they're getting cooked. Our potatoes are done. You've got all sorts of graters, box graters. This one's really good for something like this because it's going to grate it really fine, and you don't have to worry about, the cheese not getting melted properly or whatever. It's just going to melt almost immediately when it hits it. And great. Cheese is another thing. You add what you like, put as much as you want to in there, stir it up, taste it. If you don't taste the cheese, do it again. Put about a half a block in there to start. And again, this is all just stuff, like I literally went to the store today and grabbed all this. Nothing special, I didn't have to order anything. I did have my meat ground, and you'll see here in a minute that I use a beef stock. Not gonna lie, we did make the beef stock, but you can also buy it. There's lots of different brands of beef stock you can buy that are really, really quality. All right, our veg is about there. I don't think I need to retaste this mashed potato. I think I'm good there. We're gonna add back our leeks. This is gonna be a full pot, friends. We're going to add back our beef. All right, so we get all this nice and mixed up. At this point, those fats that we've saved, those fats from the beef that are in there, and that butter, that oil that we've used, we're gonna use a little bit of flour. That's gonna help tighten that up. Just right on top of the beef and the veg. It does not take too much. Don't go crazy, okay? Get that stirred in there. Get it down to where the fat is at so that it can mix well with it. And you want to do this kind of quick because, again, you're at a very high heat, right? This is extremely high heat and you don't want to burn anything. So once that flour is gone, you want to add some beef stock. Now this is the beef stock that I made today. I used some beef bones that had a little bit of meat left on them. Did some garlic and some onions and just let it cook from when I woke up this morning. Add that in. And that mixed with the flour, mixed with the fats that we've done in there, that's going to create our roux and in turn our sauce. Okay, that's going to make that gravy that is really going to make this a nice, rich, filling dish. Okay, so now that our gravy is kind of cooking, we'll turn our heat way down. Just going to let this simmer. And at this point, while it's simmering, we're going to add our a few seasonings. This is open to whatever you want to. In the book, it just shows salt, pepper, butter, oil, all those things. I'm only adding a few different things. I've got some parsley flake for the top, and then I have some celery seed. Celery seed is something you'll see a lot in like chicken salads, and you'll see it a lot in dishes like this because it makes the celery kind of pop, okay? So just a little bit, about a teaspoon. This isn't some kind of cooking show where you need to be very technical and exact. Just do it to what you like, okay? And again, you can always taste it as long as it's not raw food. What I just added was a little bit of dill. I think that the dill adds a brightness to it, to that gravy. A little bit, it almost gives it that like close to acidic flavor. It's really nice, okay? And you can see now that liquid that we started with that was so watery, you can see that it's turned into that nice gravy, okay? The difference that you'll see from using fresh stock or like a quick stock like I used from like a store-bought packet, which there's nothing wrong with packets. They have their time. They have exactly, in the world of cooking, everything has its place. So I'm not down on you if you use packets. You do you. But you'll see the difference here is that unless I let that roux get really good and dark, we're gonna have a little bit lighter as far as color goes, okay? That's not a problem. You can either let your stock go longer or you can cook your roux a little bit longer and it'll darken up. All right, so now that we have it all seasoned, the last thing we need to add is our tomato paste. Now, some people add this way early. I add it a little bit later because it also helps to thicken. So if I go too far, I can't take the tomato paste out. There's still gonna be some thickness that's gonna happen now. I've not gone too far to add it, okay? Just use my flour spoon here. One nice big heaping tablespoon in there. You can put more if you want to, that's up to you. This will also help you get a little bit more of a rich color. But what it does is that's the acid balance. There's that little bit of dill in there. This is the acid balance. All food needs to have a little bit of everything. Sweet, heat, all those different things, which we haven't added the heat yet. Don't worry, I'm going to. You know, there's some people out there that are like, man, he's not putting any, like, nothing hot in there, no hot sauce, no whatever. But people do that on their own, but I do always add a little bit of chili flake to just about, I don't know, a lot of stuff that I do with ground beef because I think that it helps make it pop. Now we're getting that beautiful, kind of deeper brown, almost reddish. Just a pinch of chili flake, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of salt. And then after you mix this up, that's when you come in and you're going to taste it, okay? And if it needs more dill, needs more celery seed, needs more tomato paste, you just add what you need to, okay? Take our mashed potatoes that we've added cheese, butter, all the good stuff to. We need to crack a whole egg into it. That's going to help tighten it up. I try not to go too cold whenever I'm doing my eggs for this. I let them sit out this whole time, just so that they're, they're not too cold going in there. It's not going to shock anything or cool down your mashed potatoes too much. Crack it on the side. I'm not doing any one-handed crack action. Sorry for those of you that need that in your life. And you stir that in there. It's going to do two things. It's going to brown our potato once we put it in the oven, but it's also going to help tighten up our mashed potato so that we can get it on top and it's not just going to sink to the bottom. Okay? Make sure you do your tasting before this though. Even though the egg will cook, this is basically adding a raw product to a prepared item. So this is why we have to put it back into the oven to finish baking. Just mix it up till you don't see any yellow, okay? Set that off to the side. I'll start with my first layer here. What you want to do is you want to cover all that beautiful meat, gravy, all that with our mashed potatoes. Start up the tapping. Okay, take another layer here. You want to kind of give yourself a little bit of a spread ahead of time. I make a mess. Good. And you're just gonna layer that right on top. Make sure you cover it all the way around, so that you can no longer see your meat, okay? You don't want to see that stuff in the bottom. You want to seal the outside of it. The other thing that I typically do, this is just me, you can do it if you want to, but we save that little bit of cheese on the side. Shred all around the top. Just for that extra layer. You add that parsley flake on top, like I talked about. All that parsley layer on top, just to make it pretty for the folks that are coming over. Open up your oven. Now this thing does have a handle, but that handle's hot. Make sure you protect yourself. Slide that whole thing in there. And we're gonna let that bake for like 20-30 minutes or until the top gets really nice and golden brown, and it is gonna be so good. But I know there's some people that are like, dude, you said something about a drink. You got to have one. Where's ours? I'm going to show you how to do the drink right now. I have two confessions. Number one, I've not bartended in a very long time, but I'm going to make drinks every time we come here. Every time this show comes on, there will be some form of a drink. And two, I'm a little bit ashamed. That's my first episode, so please don't make fun of me. I forgot the peas. There's no going back now. Can't take the mashed potatoes off the top, can't add the peas to it. So we're gonna lightly butter those, salt and pepper them. They're gonna be delicious on the side of our delicious shepherd's pie. I apologize. But that being said, grab your favorite lager. I think you all can see which one is mine. Nice dark beer, rich beer, milk stouts work, anything you want to use. And I'm gonna go ahead and take it and put it into something that's a little bit easier to pour out of than a bottle. Most of the time whenever bartenders are doing this drink, they're coming straight off the tap, or they'll go into something that's a little easier to pour. Because if all goes well, this is gonna layer. All will probably not go well, but I can guarantee you from my test runs, it tastes really good, okay? So you take your hard cider, there's lots of, or dry cider, sorry. There's lots of different ciders, and the most common ones are gonna be like apples, those hard ciders, those Mike's Hard Lemonades, they make some. This is actually a dry cider. It's just a alcoholic sparkling cider, that's it. And I think it lends the best flavor. And you wanna pour it just like you normally would a beer. Try to make sure there's not too tall of a head on it. because like I said, I'm gonna try to layer this. I know that there's some people out there, and you know who you are. They're gonna be tempted to make fun of me when this doesn't layer. I ask that you restrain yourselves. At least do it to my face. Put it in the comments. Have some fun. Don't do it behind my back. All right, here we go. We're gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna get my peas that I didn't cook out of the way. All right. Okay, here we go. It is already not working. I am already upset. But I can also tell you that it's delicious. From experience. And I'm not gonna make you sit through all of it if it's not gonna work. So we're just gonna mix it together. It's fine. Doesn't hurt my feelings at all. I know that you all will. And that typically they stir it up anyways when they get it. This is gonna be a very delicious drink to go with our meal, which I'm gonna pull out of the oven in just a second. In just a second, and I'll let you see, and we'll taste it, and I'll get to see how good it is. You'll have to cook it on your own. All right, so I know I told y'all we're gonna take care of this beautiful bread. What I'm doing right here is I took some of the spices from what we put into our shepherd's pie, Goatherd's pie, and I mixed them with that little bit of leftover butter that we had. You take this bread, and it's already marked for you, right? This Irish soda bread. And you go down the middle. Make sure you use a serrated knife for bread. Don't be mean to the bread. Don't squish it. Bread has worked hard to get to where it is and be this pretty. Okay? Don't cut all the way through. Kind of give yourself some openings. You're just going to take that butter, open up one side, and just kind of give that little bit of butter in there, right? Just to start. You can also make extra of this, and people can put it on their bread afterwards. But really, you know, for me, this is just something. This is a vessel to get some of that delicious gravy at the end from the bottom of the bowl there of our Goatherd pie. Okay, and what I normally do at this point, right, because our Goatherd's pie is done, it's ready to go. I'm going to take the bread. I'm going to go ahead and shut off the oven. Okay, and then to toast the bread, melt that butter down. I'm going to take out our Goatherder's pie. And when you're taking it out, you want to make sure that you're giving yourself lots of space to land. This is a very hot pot, and you want to lay it on something. Someone has worked very hard to make this cutting board for me, and I don't want to ruin it. So spin it till you're comfortable, and then you can use the towel to kind of lay it flat, okay? And then now that the oven's off, we don't have to worry about over baking this. Just set that right on the rack, close it up, and as the oven cools, the bread will toast. Alright guys, so that's the first episode of Level Up Cooking with me, Jonathan, or like I said on Xbox, known as Mr. J57. I hope that you all enjoyed this as much as I did. I really enjoy cooking. I love to teach people. I think that it came out very well. I'm going to find out in just a few minutes. But honestly, I very much enjoyed doing this, so if you want to continue to see them, I can't do it without support from other people. Obviously, food costs money, so if you could like, subscribe, hit the notification so that you can know when the next one comes up. Please hit me up with your comments, questions, or maybe your ideas for the next meal that I'm gonna do, or down the line, something that you'd like to see. I would love the feedback. This Goatherd's or shepherd's pie, you know, traditionally made with lamb. I made it with beef, forgot my peas, and I added cheese to my mashed potatoes, has turned out phenomenally. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. Cook the way that you like. Cook stuff that tastes good to you. Because if you don't like the way it looks, you don't like the way that it sounds, it's all open up to whatever you want to do with it. That's what's fun about cooking. Get in there, experiment. And if you can't figure it out, like, will this work? Shoot me a question in the comments. I'll help you out. But I'm gonna go ahead and taste this, make sure it turned out okay. Very hot, but very delicious. Such an easy recipe, easy to do. Anybody that eats it's gonna enjoy it. Carrots are tender, the leeks are delicious. Onions are great, even the peas off to the side are nice. Again, I hope you all enjoyed this. You probably couldn't enjoy it as much as I did. Go out there, game, enjoy yourselves, and if you'd like, maybe you can come back for the next episode and I'll see you here, so that not only are you leveling up in the game, but you're leveling up your cooking.